The Liars Club by Mary Carr.
Okay, so I am here with Madison Lee, and we are going to be talking about a few things that went on with the book. She does have a set of questions, and she's going to be interviewing me today.
What challenges did Mary have to face in this piece of literature?
In this piece of literature, Mary definitely had to face challenges when it came to her mother, Charlie, with alcoholism, her mental illness, and just all of her emotions growing up as a child. And a lot of problems also with her grandmother, Moore, who passed away, and that did really take a big toll on Mary. And yeah, she dealt with a lot of issues, especially with her family and having a really dysfunctional family growing up.
What are Mary's views on Hector throughout the story?
So throughout the story, Hector was a Mexican bartender that actually was kind of like Mary's stepfather in the book. And he did marry Charlie, but the relationship was not successful. And Mary really did not like the way that Hector treated everybody and how he was involved with alcoholism and really did just depend on all of his income through Charlie throughout the story. And I'm glad that ended.
What bond did Leisha and Mary have?
Throughout the story, Leisha and Mary were sisters, and they did get along quite well. And I also do believe that they did kind of cope with the entire thing that went on with their family together, and they did get along pretty well, which was really good to kind of have that outlet and to be able to speak to someone about problems like that.
Did the bond between both of the girls make tough situations feel better?
Yeah, definitely it did, especially with like Charlie and how they kind of honestly relied on each other. And in a sense, I find that they were both parents to each other and really did help each other out when it came to getting schoolwork done or even just getting ready in the morning.
Mary has many views on each character. Does this change your perspective on them?
Yeah, it definitely does, especially since Mary is the first person talking, and I do respect her opinion, especially when she does have her issues and we do hear kind of her story and her side of it. And it does change a lot of my perspective on each character when she does explain to us what's going on in the story.
What was Charlie's role at the end of the book, and how did it turn out compared to your expectations?
So Charlie's role at the end of the book, she actually kind of stepped up and became the mother that I never really expected her to be. I kind of expected that maybe she would even just completely fall face of the earth when it came to Mary, just never talking to her again, or even get so deeply into alcohol, maybe even drugs, that they would just never really keep in touch. But Charlie did kind of exceed my expectations, and she did kind of show up to be the mother, and she did keep in contact with Mary, which is actually really important, I find.
How did Mary turn her life around for the better?
Mary definitely turned her life around for the better when she did grow up with a dysfunctional family and with a lot of family problems. Most people, or a lot of people, would actually have a really hard time getting away from that and doing something different. But Mary did turn her life around for the better. She did go to college and she did graduate, and that was a really big step, especially since the family that she came from.
What do you expect to happen after the story ends?
After the story ends, I could totally see all the three girls getting together, Leisha, Mary, and Charlie. I'm not really sure about Pete. He kind of just was in the background. But I could see maybe Charlie getting married and having her own family, and I can see the family kind of connecting a bit after that. Hopefully Pete would stay away from alcohol, and so same with Charlie. And yeah, I can actually see the family kind of getting together more, since at the end of the book, they already did kind of get together more than what they were in the beginning.
How do you think Mary felt writing and publishing this piece of literature?
I feel like after Mary wrote it and published it, it kind of mended some of the wounds that she had from when she was a child. I feel like when she was writing it, it kind of got her story out, and it made her kind of have her own perspective and let other people know how her childhood actually was. Publishing it was probably actually really good for her, since she probably actually got more help after that, and more people were aware of how her childhood actually was. So I feel like it did help Mary in a good way, and I'm pretty sure that she has said that for herself as well.
Do you believe this was a way for Mary to cope with what happened?
I think that it definitely was, especially since she did have a really rough childhood, and being able to kind of step away from that and really thinking about everything that happened and writing about it and putting her own emotional feelings into it, it really helped her cope with everything.
How do you cope with problems you face, and would you ever consider writing about it?
Whenever I have problems, I cope with communication and talking to others. I also do sometimes listen to music to get over it, or even to just think about my perspective and other people's. And to kind of sit down with myself and really have a good chat and think, what can I do to fix this? Writing about it is actually a really good idea. I have never actually had that experience of doing that, but I feel like writing about your issues is something that can also help out and potentially even showing others so that they can get an understanding as well.
Did you enjoy the book overall?
I honestly did enjoy the book overall. I thought that it was a really good representation of how Mary did live out her life. And I think that it also kind of shows that not every single family is perfect and that we all do kind of have our differences and we all have our ups and downs, but from that we do learn and we do change ourselves over time.
What is Mary's perspective on the male and female characters in the book?
Mary's perspective on the male and female characters in the book was mostly that, I don't know, her mom had a lot of problem with alcoholism, and I do find that she was very lazy. And Pete, the male, he honestly did work really hard at his job, and I found that he was kind of the one that made the money. I do believe that Mary kind of thought that the woman didn't really have to go to work and that they did have to just stay home, and that the whole reason for her dysfunctional family was because of her mother, which is the female in the story.
How are females viewed in the story?
Females were kind of viewed as powerless in the story, especially when it came to all of the girls. They all had like mental disorders or problems with alcoholism, and they were almost like broken in a way compared to the males that were in the story.
How were females treated during this time period?
During this time period, females were actually starting to kind of like stand up for themselves more. They were starting to become more employed and kind of getting on the right track of not just staying at home all the time. Especially with Charlie actually having her own bar that she worked at. And yeah, it was actually kind of a good time.
What role did each person play within the family, men and female both?
So in the family, it was kind of obvious that Charlie was just kind of a broken down mother who didn't really necessarily care. She had her own problems. She went to the psych ward and was dealing with physical and mental problems. Another thing was the grandmother Moore did pass away, which did lead Charlie into a very deep depression. For the males in the story, Pete was a really hardworking guy when it came to his job, but when it came to a father, he did kind of struggle, and overall, after in the book, in the conclusion, he really did just completely stop out of all the girls' lives.
How do women exercise their power in the text?
In the text, one thing that I could say was that Mary did really work hard on kind of helping herself and being the best that she could be, especially when it was her and Leisha working together. Another thing that I could say was that it was good that Charlie and Pete did separate, and it was good that she did try and fix the problem. Yes.
Did Mary find herself being or feeling left out because of her gender?
I find that Mary did. She was very shy when it came to kind of speaking about the problems that happened in the household. I can definitely sense that she was really scared as well, especially when it came to her and Hector. She was definitely scared of Hector and was really uneasy when she was around him.
Do you think the breakup between Pete and Charlie was necessary?
I definitely think it was necessary, especially since Pete did try to distance himself and go to work every day and try to kind of put his job out so that he didn't have to go and worry about everything that was going on at home with Charlie. I think that it was a good idea that they did break up, but at the exact same time, the relationship between Charlie and Hector that soon became was not successful at all.